All right, so we're going to continue with Perek Mem Dalet, chapter 44 in the Tanya. For those of you who are interested, there's a lecture that I gave about 9 years ago in Torah Or about Tisha B'Av. It is titled How to Rebuild the Temple. It's on the internet. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason I point to this lecture is not only because next week is Tisha B'Av, but there's some elements in that lecture that relate to what we're learning, especially the kesher, the connection between a husband and a wife. After all, when we talk about rebuilding the temple, the house of Hashem, many of the conditions that go into building such a temple and maintaining it are very similar to what needs to go into a home. How to build a home, how to build a Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael, and more importantly, how to maintain it. People start off building it, but it crashes, it collapses. And you wonder, how is it possible that a couple who was really in love at one time, under the chuppah, Aret Mekudeshetli, you are sanctified to me. What a powerful language of endearment, sanctified to me. Only you, one person. And somehow it cools off. Relationships can cool off. We know that. They end in divorce, some of them. And unfortunately, the same is true with the relationship with Hashem. It can cool off. Even though once upon a time it was strong, it was deep, and there was a certain closeness that the Jew felt with Hashem. Somehow, with time, that can wear off. And it's very sad when it does. We have history to prove it. History proves it. We lost our first temple, we lost the second temple, and we've been in Galut, in exile for so long. This Tisha B'Av, it's 1949 years since the destruction of the second Beit. The rabbis tell us, you want to know why it's so long? The simple explanation is because whatever problem existed back then that brought about the destruction of the home still exists today. So we are guilty of not rebuilding it. But it was the same problems that have existed all along are still around. And that is the baseless hatred. And baseless hatred is a real problem, because when you have baseless hatred, you don't have love, you don't have unity. So it is a big problem. So I thought about speaking a little bit about this as an introduction to Perek Mem Dalet, because here he will be describing what it takes to propel the Jew to have this strong connection with Hashem called Ahava. We've spoken about Yirah, we've spoken about fear, but we're talking a little bit more about Ahava. Ahava is love. We're familiar somewhat with love. We know what love can feel like, but we want to know what it takes to build that love and to make sure that it does not cool off. There's a famous pasuk in Shir HaShirim, Mayim Rabbim lo yichlu lechabot et ahava u'narot lo yishtefuha, which he somewhat quotes here. Sometimes there's such a powerful love, the love that Hashem has for us, that no waters in the world, not even the biggest tsunamis, can extinguish it. It is so powerful, it is so strong. But that's Hashem's love for us. Can we have that same love to Him? And the answer is yes, of course, it's possible. But it takes getting used to. It takes wanting it. It takes a certain awareness that one must have, what it entails. What is the love for Hashem all about? So what I'm going to do this time, and I've done it somewhat in the past as well, is as much as possible read from the Sefer, from the book itself, so that we keep our focus in place. Because sometimes he moves to another topic, and we don't want to lose track of the main message over here. The message is really that every individual, no matter what kind of a home he grew up in, no matter of the fact that he was once perhaps not religious at all, he can reach a very high level of love and fear for Hashem, as long as he follows certain directives, as long as he follows certain exercise drills, I guess we can call them, that he applies, he will get there. After all, what is an exercise drill? to strengthen our muscles, to get us used to doing something, so that eventually it becomes easier to do. That's what exercise is all about. It's not only about losing weight, that too. Not only about keeping in shape, but it's making sure that the body is fit. Fit? Yeah, because at times the body is expected to do certain things that are perhaps difficult and challenging, and if you're not physically fit, you may not be able to do it, right? You know about that, you know. At one time when you were younger, when we were younger, we were able to do certain things with ease. Can we do them 30 years from now? 40 years from now? Well, it depends what it is. Some people have a hard time even walking. They need a cane. So that's what age is all about. You know, we can only be somewhat physically fit, hopefully, if we maintain this certain regimen of exercise on a regular basis, because it will help us. Otherwise, there's a chance, depending of course on the genes, that we may not be able to do in our later years what we were capable of doing in our younger years. Here we're talking about Ahavat Hashem, the love for Hashem. We want, not only for ourselves, we want our children to have this connection to Hashem. We don't want them to lose it. But unfortunately, we have heard many stories of individuals who started off good and later on turned sour, as I mentioned last week. Yochanan Kohen Gadol, the high priest, he was a high priest for 80 years. Something happened. His views changed. And when the views change, the heart changes. It's all connected. You had the opposite too. Not only with Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, who was unfortunately spiritually on a very low level for a long time, but at the very end of his life, at the very end, he repented. And that made a big difference. Not only with him, this is also true with many Jews who started off on the wrong path, but became Balei Tshuva. They repented and they returned to Hashem. So the two are possible. To start off strong and cool off, and to start off not so strong and become stronger. Of course, a lot will depend on Hashem's assistance. We need Hashem's assistance. The Yetzer Hara is very powerful, very, very powerful. And even the best sometimes stumble, the best. So what we're going to be learning about is not only important to strengthen our connection to Hashem, but to maintain it, because it could easily cool off, Chas v'Shalom. So he begins chapter 44 by reminding us that Madrigat Ahava, the level of love, which we spoke about last week, Ahava Rabbah and Ahavat Olam, in reality can be subdivided into various additional levels. If you recall, Ahava Rabbah is a very, very lofty level of love, which is gifted to us by Hashem. You cannot attain it by yourself. It's a very, very high level of Ahavat Olam is possible, eternal love. A love that comes about through contemplation, in the same way of Yirah. That's easier. I said easier, but not so easy. It still requires something. Something needs to be done to acquire it, but it's possible. And if we do it, we will acquire Ahavat Olam. But still, levels of Ahava exist, just like levels of Yirah. Various levels, different shades of love, some stronger and some not as strong. And he says these levels are subdivided. Each one according to his abilities, to his understanding. Understanding? Yeah. As he mentions the Zohar here, on the Pasuk, Noda b'she'arim bala. If you recall the verse, Noda b'she'arim bala, in Mishlei, about an Eshet Hayil, that her husband is known in the gates, in town. Everybody knows this man, because he's married to this very special woman. And as a result of that, everybody knows this man. That's the simple interpretation of that Pasuk. Noda b'she'arim bala. But the Zohar says this verse, from a Kabbalistic interpretation, refers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Noda, Basharim Bala, the husband. He's known? Yeah. Depending by whom. Some know him better, some know him less. In other words, the knowledge of Hashem, depending on how we know him, how we relate to him, will determine what kind of a love and relationship we have with him. Knowledge. Those that study Torah on a regular basis, those that study Kabbalah, will have a tremendous, profound understanding of Hashem, much more than those that never learned Torah or Kabbalah. No doubt about it. The more we learn about the Torah, the more we know of Hashem. We will never know everything there is to know about Hashem. Especially when we are in our physical body, we're limited. But there's a lot more to know by learning Torah than not knowing at all. The mind does not have the full capacity to be able to understand the ways of Hashem without some sort of direction. Now, there were some very bright people, great minds, philosophers, who somewhat, on their own, with their own mind, were able to figure things out on their own. But who's to say they are right? There's a lot of other philosophers who disagree with them. Because it's the mind. The mind can play tricks on you. There's bias. So how do you know you're right? There's different camps, different philosophies, many philosophies. So unless you have some sort of tradition that of course you trust 100%, you cannot be 100% sure that what you think is 100% true. So therefore to learn the Chokhmah of Hashem is critical, as we mentioned last week, that in En Chokhmah En Yirah, if there's no wisdom of Hashem, it's not possible to cultivate a real fear for Hashem, a real fear, the highest form of fear. We'll be talking here a little bit of a different type of idea of the love for Hashem that stems from a certain awareness of who Hashem is. In other words, no longer will the emphasis now be just on plain contemplating the greatness of Hashem and the universe that He created, from which we see, by the way, indirectly who He is, and a little bit what He wants of us, perhaps, that life has meaning and purpose. He didn't just create it for fun. We'll be seeing a little bit more how man can relate to Hashem in the way a son relates to a father, in the way that the human being relates to life. Have you ever seen an animal volunteer itself to a lion? Come, you want dinner? You can have me. I don't think so. Every animal appreciates life. For some reason, it's built in. Life is precious. Do you know who gave you that life? Do you want to continue to live? Well, do you know who gave it to you? In other words, pay attention to these details, because they will help you with the Ahava. So we will talk a little bit about it in this Perek, that there's another aspect to this love that comes from a certain awareness that everyone is capable of. So therefore, he says, love depends on how much we know Him. Daku Chabrichu. Ba'ala, the husband that this verse is referring to, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Di'ihu it yada v'dabak lechol chad lefum adim sha'ir b'liben. He becomes connected to us according to our level of understanding, according to how much we know Him. Each one also has different abilities to ponder the greatness of Hashem. So that's why love will vary. Great tzaddikim loved Hashem very, very much. And even simple people were prepared to die for Hashem because of their love for Hashem. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you? Great tzaddikim, simple people. It depends on their emunah. It depends on how much they knew Him. You have people who have lived through, experienced many miracles. They saw the hand of Hashem. And then you have others who just ignore the miracles. Clear miracles. How could you? Obviously, they're not focused. They don't on a daily basis relate to Hashem as a miracle maker, as the giver of life, who can take away that life. So there's a lack of awareness, a lack of connection, which produces distance from Hashem. Sin produces distance too, for a different reason. Because sin is a certain connection to the other side, to the sitra achara, to the impure forces. It is an open rebellion, especially if it was done intentionally. So mentally, anything that's done intentionally is very serious. There's no korban, there's no sacrifice for having done a intentional sin, with some exceptions. Generally, a korban chatat is only for shgagot, for unintentional sins. What for? Also, you didn't pay attention. So you did something unintentional. You're not an animal. Look up. Remember your boss. And that boss is continuously observing what you're doing. Aren't you fearful of him? So one who has a normal amount of fear and love for Hashem will not want to sin. So it's critical that he have the minimal. Otherwise, what's holding him back from sinning? You know how many people are depressed, break down, sad, disappointed, whatever you want to call it. And as a result of that, they allow themselves to go against Hashem. Chas v'shalom, to go against the Torah. That's even worse than just cooling off. They somehow are justifying it. People who went through the Holocaust, which we are not going to judge, of course, have a little bit of that. Where was God? And allow themselves to just go ahead and drop everything. As soon as they came to the shores of America, they stopped being religious, especially as the challenges rose, that they had to work on Shabbat. It became too difficult for them to maintain an observant lifestyle. But wait a minute, your forefathers had no problem with that. They gave their lives. They were willing to do anything to keep Shabbat. What's the difference between you and them? What happened? Obviously, we can't read the mind of everyone. People went through all kinds of experiences. We don't know. What we do know is that the stronger the emunah is, the deeper the emunah is, the better the chances that it will survive all the storms of the sea. We're like a boat in the sea, and sometimes it becomes very stormy. And you need a good captain that is confident, of course, that knows what he's doing, knows where he's headed, with a good compass. And we need his encouragement too. Of course, we need Hashem's help, right? That we don't get lost, that we survive. So the same thing is with emunah. Emunah needs a certain amount of clarity of purpose. A challenge is only a challenge. It's not more than that. Don't take it to mean that God has left the scene. It's a challenge. That's all it is. Properly interpreting situations is very important. But without chokhmah, how are we going to be able to interpret things? So emunah temimah, in the past, pure faith, which means without any understanding of why things happen, was always the key. Not everybody was logical, studious, scholarly, and learned, that he should be able to use that knowledge to survive. On the contrary, it was those who had emunah temimah, who were better off, who were stronger, were able to resist the pressures of the Inquisition. Those who were very, very learned and scholarly actually began to use that same scholarly mind to say, wait a minute, you know what, perhaps I can get away with it for a while until things quiet down, and then I'll go back and be observant. For now, I'll just make believe. I converted to their faith. No, that was the wrong move. All it took was to move away from observance of Torah Mitzvot, even though it was to make believe. Eventually, that act cooled them off. It disconnected them. And what happens to your phone If you don't recharge it, after a while, the battery dies. If they were not recharging their soul with continuous Torah and prayer, before you knew it, they cooled off, and if they didn't cool off, their children did. Important to stay connected, important to stay strong at all times. And that requires constant vigilance and certain exercise drills, which is what we're talking about here. But first, he tells us that don't be surprised that there are different levels, because those levels depend on how much we know Hashem. Some people know Him more, and some people know Him less. ולכן he says, נקראים, דחילו ורחימו הנסתרות לשם אלוקינו, ותורה מצוות הן המנגלות לנו לבנינו לעשות. He says, that's why the fear and love for Hashem are called הנסתרות לשם אלוקינו. They are concealed. Because you don't know how much people love or fear. Different levels. You can't tell that always. But הנגלות לנו ולבנינו, that which is revealed, is the Torah and mitzvot. Because that, we can see. We can see people who are observant or not. So he uses that verse to describe how certain things can be known, certain things cannot be known. We don't know the various levels of fear and love in people, but we can know approximately their observance in Torah mitzvot. That is revealed. Because in the end, he says, כי תורה אחת ומשפט אחד לכולנו בקיום כל התורה ומצוות מבחינת מעשה. When it comes to Torah and mitzvot, we're all the same, more or less. We all put on the same tefillin. More or less. It's all one. It's one Torah. At least it should be. I'm not talking about customs right now. I'm talking about the Torah. We all believe in Shema Yisrael. מה שאין כן בדחילו ורחימו, when it comes to love and fear, שהם לפי הדעת את השם שבמוח והלב. When it comes to the fear and love of Hashem, that already depends on the da'at, on how much understanding we have. That already will vary. אחת היא אהבה הכלולה מכל בחינות ומדרגות אהבה רבה ואהבת עולם, והיא שווה לכל נפש מישראל וירושלנו מאבותינו. But there is one love, he says, that we do have in common, that is actually inherited by us. We have it in our soul from our forefathers. And this ahava, he says, klula, is comprised of the two ahavot that we discussed in last week's chapter. Ahava olam and ahava rabba. What's interesting is that he says that this love has the two of them. But wait a minute. It has the two of them that we inherited from our forefathers. But didn't you say that that love, called ahava rabba, is something that you cannot attain? That love, ahava rabba, is a love that is gifted to us. One who is complete in yirat Hashem, in the fear of Hashem, can attain it. How does he attain it? Not that he is able to grab it. It's gifted to him from above. And here he says, no, there's also another kind of ahava that we inherited, that we have. It's latent, it's dormant perhaps. It's not yet displayed or revealed, but it includes both ahava rabba and ahavat olam. And he shava lechol nefesh misrael, and we all have it. All of us. Even ahavat rabba, that you said is a very, very high and lofty level of love. He says, yeah. He says, it could be understood through the following Zohar, where this is more or less described. The Zohar says, on the pasuk, nafshi iviticha balayla. Pasuk in Yeshayahu, how my soul longs for Hashem at night. And grammatically, this pasuk doesn't really make too much sense. My soul desires you. In Hebrew, is written in a very different way. Nafshi ivita, perhaps, or iviticha. Balayla. In other words, it depends what exactly you're trying to say, but to say nafshi iviticha balayla, grammatically, it doesn't make sense. But he says, you know what the meaning of that pasuk is? The Zohar says, "The yarachem lekut shebrichu rechimuta de nafsha verucha kamadidabku ilen begufa vegufa de rachim lo." That one should love Hashem, a love of spirit, in the same way that he loves the spirit that is in his body. We love our spirit? Yeah, because we want to live. That's what it means. Not that we love ourselves. In other words, we love the spirit of life within us. We don't want it to leave us. We're grateful every morning. We say, Modani lefanecha, that Hashem restored back the spirit. Because according to the Kabbalah, as you know, when one is asleep, it's like 1/60th of death. That is why we wash our hands in the morning, because of the impurity. So he says, that's the kind of love that one should have, as much as he loves his spirit. He wants to stay alive. So this is the meaning of that pasuk. The way it is written really refers to Hashem. Nafshi. Hashem is my soul. In other words, he's no longer saying my soul yearns or my soul longs for you, because grammatically it was a little bit difficult to understand. It must be saying something else. My soul, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu. נפשי ביתי, כלומר, מפני שאתה השם, נפשי בחיי האמיתיים, לכך הבאתיך. Because you are my soul. You are the source of my life. You gave me my life. Because of that, אני מתהווה ותאב לך כאדם המתהווה לחיי נפשו. כשהוא חלש ומעונה, מתהווה ותאב שתבשו נפשו אליו. Just like a human being desires and appreciates his life, very much longs for it, especially when he's tired and weak. Why especially when he's tired and when he's weak? Does he think about it? I want my life. I want my health. Because when we are alive, functioning, operating normally, we don't appreciate it as much. We don't realize the importance of that life. We're just not focused. We're just doing something else. We don't understand the meaning of it. We don't sense the pleasure of having it. When do you sense the pleasure? When do you realize its importance? When you're weak. When a person is sick, he wants his life, he wants his health back. So this is what one needs to contemplate, think about. Even though he's saying here that this is inherited, in which we have it, a very important point that he stresses over and over again is you still have to bring it out. You still have to reveal it. You still have to really feel it. And this will make a world of a difference, as we will see towards the end of the chapter, why it's so important to reveal, to bring out in the open, to think about these things on a regular basis. Just think about it for a minute before we go on. If somebody every day in the morning thanks Hashem with the real kavanah, Hashem, you know what? I realize some people didn't wake up this morning. Thanks so much for giving me another day, another opportunity. And he really means it. You know what that does to him? I don't have to tell you. It's obvious. But most people don't get up in the morning doing that, thinking that. Why not? They didn't learn the Tanya. They don't realize the importance of it. Obviously, those who are more careful with kavanah, with having the intent in their blessings, will hopefully one day do it properly. But it takes getting used to. That's the key. One of the keys here is getting used to certain things. It will come a second nature. וכן כשהוא הולך לישון מתהווה וחפץ שתשוב נפשו אליו כשיעור משנתו. The same thing he feels and he says to himself when he goes to sleep, that he would love for his nefesh, for his spirit to return to him when he awakens from his sleep. כך אני מתהווה ותאב לאור אינסוף ברוך הוא חיי החיים האמיתיים להמשיכו בקרבי על ידי עסק התורה. In the same way I long for the Or Ein Sof, for the light of Hashem, the light of the Ein Sof, who is the source of all life, true life. To draw it into me through the Esek, through the learning of the Torah, when I get up from my sleep, Balayla, at night. What's interesting here is that he just like assumes that everybody gets up at night. Most people don't get up at night, but the tzaddikim, the real chachamim, would get up for tikkun chatzot at night, to learn. They would go to sleep earlier, You get up after midnight or around midnight time. Not in the morning like we do. Our schedule is very, very different than those who are continuously immersed in Torah and in service of Hashem. But here, he has the longing and the desire to do that, to get up. And what does he think about? What for to get up? So that I can draw that light of Hashem into me through the esek, through the occupation of Torah. After all, the Torah and Hashem is all one. By learning Torah, we connect to Hashem. As the Zohar, he continues on to say, elaborates further over there, really, in reality, man, the Jew in this case, should, out of love to Hashem, get up every morning, get up every night, that is, to involve himself in the service of Hashem. Obviously, if somebody were to do that, it is definitely something very, very lofty, something very, very special, if we could do that. So, this is one way of understanding the love for Hashem that is embedded in us, that we inherited, that looks at Hashem as the source of all life, and therefore longs for Him, and does not want to part from Him. Otherwise, it's like parting from life. Do you want to part from life? No. In the same way I don't want to part from life, in the same way I don't want to part from Hashem. Because He is the provider, the source of all life. A greater love, he says, that is also concealed in every nefesh of Israel, inherited as well from our forefathers, is, as we've said before, like a son who's willing to do everything for his father or mother because of his love for them. He loves them much more than he loves himself. We've spoken a little bit about this before. In the end, we all have the same Father. We are all therefore capable of having this kind of a feeling. Makes no difference who you are. We're all capable of having that feeling. Now he says, but wait a minute. Who would dare think that he can get to such a level of love, which is the love displayed or exemplified by the Raya Mehinda, the trusted shepherd, Moshe Rabbeinu? So who would think that he can actually achieve this, where he actually feels it? We're going to soon see that even though you don't fully feel it, you could try to believe that you have it in you. Even though it's not completely displayed, it's better than nothing. It's not a complete lie. It's not an illusion. If somebody thinks this way, even though he doesn't fully feel it, because this will help him. That's very, very interesting. In other words, even though something may not be 100% accurate, not that you're denying it, you're not faking it exactly, but you don't feel it, but you say to yourself, this is the way it is. Hashem is my Father. Hashem is the source of life. I want to do everything for Him as I would do for my own father and mother. Even though you don't really mean it yet, I say yet, hopefully we will. You don't feel it 100%, it's important to think that way. But first he says, but wait a minute, who can dare think like that to be like Moshe Rabbeinu? So what he's about to say is that it's not that we come to the level of Moshe Rabbeinu exactly. The level of Moshe's prophecy, no one could ever get to. But there's certain qualities that Moshe had that we can get to. Moshe's care for others, Moshe's love and closeness to Hashem, even though we cannot have his closeness, because he was very close and he could speak to Hashem, but the idea of being close to Hashem in a similar way that Moshe had, where he wanted to do anything, where he was prepared to do anything. Am Yisrael said, Na'aseh v'nishma. The Jewish people said, we are prepared to do everything and to listen. They reached a very high level then. Could you imagine what would happen if everybody today would say, Hashem, na'aseh v'nishma, ala aini wa ala rasi, as we say in Arabic, whatever you say. Mashiach would have come a long time ago. Or in Farsi, Rucheshma. Right? Yeah, imagine. Everyone would say that. It would be good, right? So he says, but wait a minute. Are people capable of doing that? Who would dare come close to say that he feels like the Raya Mehimna? Mikol Makom, he says, הרי אפס קצהו ושמץ מינהו מרוב טובו ואורו מאיר לכללות ישראל בכל דור ודור. This is similar to what we said before. There's some aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu's nefesh, of Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama, of his soul, that lights in every generation our souls. As it brings down in the Tikkunim, להתפשטות בכל דרה ודרה להנהר אלון. Somehow there's a light of Moshe that spreads throughout all the generations to illuminate all the neshamot of Israel. We've spoken about the nitzotz, the spark of Moshe. In other words, there's something of Moshe in every generation that is important to have. Apparently Hashem intentionally had it done this way so that we should always have, this is the way I see it, some of his leadership continuously until Mashiach comes. Somehow through his involvement, through his neshama, through the nitzotzot, the sparks of his neshama that are found in certain great leaders, we're able to survive. Otherwise, there's a concept in the Kabbalah called Yeridat Adorot. The generations have become weaker and weaker. It's a fact. We don't have the same leaders today that we had before, even though every generation has its leaders that it needs. But how do we compare ourselves to previous generations? We're so much weaker. How do we survive? Obviously, Hinei lo yanum velo yishan shomei Israel. Hashem doesn't slumber. He doesn't sleep. He watches over us. As the Midrash says, don't think the sheep is so strong that he can avoid or overcome 70 wolves. It's the shepherd who guards that sheep. It's not the sheep. So Kadosh Baruch Hu's Hashgacha, his divine providence, is what's really protecting us. Nonetheless, there is something, the Kabbalah says, of Moshe's soul present in every generation. And at least, even though we're talking about something inherited in us, Moshe's soul illuminates or allows for that which is inherited to come out and be revealed. So what if something is inherited? What makes it come out? What gives us the koach, the strength, to bring it out into the open? So that is the meaning, perhaps, of Moshe's soul illuminating, being around in every generation. This illumination is concealed in all the souls of the Jews. ולהוציא אהבה זו המסותרת מהעלם וההסתר אל הגילוי, להיות בהתגלות ליבו ומוחו, לא נפלט ולא רחוקה היא, אלא קרוב הדבר מאוד בפיך ובלבבך. In other words, even though it's concealed, it's there. It could be brought out into the open. It could be revealed in our heart and in our brain, and it's not very, very difficult. He says, לא נפלט ולא רחוקה היא. It's there, it could be brought out, and it can be done by everyone. דהיינו, how? להיות רגיל על לשונו וקולו לעודד כוונת ליבו ומוחו להעמיק מחשבתו בחיי החיים אצלו ברוך הוא. כי הוא אבינו ממש אמיתי, ומקור חיינו. What needs to be done? Well, the simple thing that can be done is to talk about it, is to say it. That it should be רגיל על לשונו, it should be regular on our tongue. We say things on a regular basis. And you know what this does? He says, what we say, me'orer kavanat libo mocho, this at least awakens the kavanah. That's why it's not a good idea to read the prayer without uttering it out loud. Rabbis tell us, don't learn in a silent mode, quietly to yourself, because you will forget. When we say it, when we speak it out loud, it helps us retain it. It helps the memory. Say it out loud. Read it from inside the Siddur. Otiyot mahkimot, the rabbis tell us. The letters also will make you smarter. Look at the letters. But I know it by heart. No, it's very different. Obviously, you're allowed to pray by heart. Sometimes praying by heart is good because you can close your eyes and that can help the concentration. For other people, however, they concentrate better when they see the words themselves. So each one knows himself, and you can do either or. With your eyes closed, reading it inside, as long as you don't skip a word, as long as you do your best to say every word with kavanah, as much as possible. So here what he's saying is, what's significant about this love is that you could easily bring it out by first making sure that you are ragil, that you are accustomed to it, habituated to it, bilishono, with your tongue. Because this kol, this voice that will come out from your mouth, will be able to be me'orer the kavanah, will be able to awaken the kavanah, the intent of the heart. And the mocho, and his brain. Le'amik, to have a deeper thoughts, b'chayei ha'chaim, the source of all life, of Hashem. Ki hu avinu mamash, he is our father, he's our real father. Amiti, he's mekor chayenu, the source of our life. And therefore, le'orer elav ahava, to awaken towards him that love, ki ahavat ben elav, like the son has towards his father. The son knows who his father is. Have you ever seen an infant nursing? They know who their mother is, they somehow feel it. They can't really see well, but the little baby, somehow they detect the mother. A child who grew up with his father knows who that father is. Some of them misbehave, but at least they recognize who the father is. Then why not the human being, the adult, recognize who the source of life is? What's holding him back? We'll talk about it in another lecture, perhaps, at Hashem. What is holding back people from recognizing this fact? Remember, human beings are created alike, even though the Jewish people have a different mission, and because of that they have a different level of soul. We're all created in the image of Hashem, meaning that we were given similar abilities. It's not fair if others have more abilities. Now, even though the very beginning of the Tanya does discuss the levels of soul, and we did discuss about klipat noga and about different tendencies of the various levels of souls, still, on the basic level of recognizing Hashem, recognizing that He's the source of all life, everyone more or less should have that ability. There has to first be a will, a desire, a true interest in finding out. And I have some news to tell you. Some people don't care about it. I asked someone, why don't you try to figure out how you came to be, how the world was created? He said, I'm not interested. Could you believe that? I'm not interested to know that. What does that tell you? It's an escape mechanism. But anyway, Am Yisrael has something inherited, and that is an advantage. Why do we have it inherited? Because Hashem wants to make sure that the Torah He gave us is kept. Otherwise, normally, logically, historically, statistically, the Torah, after several generations, would have been lost, forgotten. Just like any culture. We held on to it. We didn't give up. We were willing to die for it. Doesn't that tell you something? All you need to is to read Jewish history, and you think the Jew knows this? Many non-Jews say they say this, they saw this, they wrote about this. One of them, Mark Twain, says, what's going on? It's obvious to me that these people are unique in some way. He doesn't have the answer for it, why, but he says it's obvious. Everybody else, the big empires, disappeared. How come they're still around? And they were beaten over and over again. So this man can see it, and he's not Jewish. Why doesn't everybody see it? Some people do see it. They pay attention. They look at history. They're in tune with their soul. They're open-minded. They're fair. They're honest. Obviously, if you're not honest and you're biased, then you're not going to see this. But here we're talking about the Jew's connection to Hashem, which, even though we have certain qualities that are inherited, still needs to be developed. And part of that development is having the right outlook. Hashem is our Father. He's the source of life. So we have the two. Source of life, you don't want to lose that life, and you don't want to go against your Father. It's slightly different, but similar idea. You don't want to be cut off. You don't want to be disconnected from the source. So he says if you talk about it, eventually you will develop that love. And when you accustom yourself to do this on a regular basis, this will be second nature. He goes on, even if you think that this is just an illusion, in other words, as I said earlier, they tell me to think like that, but do I really believe it? Do I really feel it? Still, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it even if you don't really feel it 100%. This is true, it's not a lie. It is concealed within us, within every Jew. It's there. You may not be feeling it, you're not experiencing it perhaps, it's not on your mind. The importance of talking about it on a regular basis, thinking about it, is simply only because you need to bring it out and transform those thoughts and that belief into action. What's action? שהוא עסק התורה והמצוות שלומד ומקיים על ידי זה כדי לעשות נחת רוח לפניו יתברך כבן העובד את אביו. In the end, you want to observe his Torah and mitzvot. You want to learn his Torah. You want to fulfill his commandments. In order to get the Jew to do that, you got to do something else. What is that? Practice. Practice thinking about these ideas, even though it's not strongly embedded there. You don't feel it so much. Imagine somebody says, I'm not in the mood. I don't feel like it. I don't really love Hashem so much. Chas v'shalom. He just says that. Because he doesn't. But it's not completely true that he doesn't. He really does. It just it hasn't come out into open. It hasn't revealed it. He's being bothered perhaps by something that is leading him to believe that. He has complaints. He has doubts. And having doubts is very dangerous to one's emunah. It's important to get one's questions answered. If you have questions, ask the right person. Don't live with doubts. Doubts also tend to cool people off, depress people. And a lot of people, for many, many years, are living that kind of a life where they are in limbo. They grew up somewhat religious, but they can't get themselves, they can't muster the courage to advance spiritually. Whatever they retain is because it's just something that they got used to it. And if it becomes a little bit too difficult, they may drop that too. There's always that danger if the faith is not continuously recharged. And that is why he's talking about ragila leshono. Continuously talk about it. Even though we've said before many times that what will make a difference is kavanah. If somebody just out of routine says something, it may not do something for him. And here he's saying that it will. Ragila leshono. Because it's worth something. You have to bring it out. Machshava is one level, the thought. Dibur is the second level. Speech is the second. It's higher than thought. Then comes ma'aseh. And even the ma'aseh itself could be without too much kavanah, without heart. Yes, but it's better than nothing. No. You might have somebody say, as long as I don't really feel it, I'm not going to do it. It's like the guy that I told you that did not want to put on tzitzit. Why? He says, how could I put on tzitzit if I don't keep Shabbat yet? I don't eat kosher. So what does one thing have to do with another? Do whatever you can. It's your yetzer hara. The evil inclination who's telling you, you're not like this and you can't do this. Imagine a husband thinks to himself, well, should I buy my wife a birthday card? I don't help her in the kitchen. So because I don't help her in the kitchen, I'm not going to buy her a birthday card. What does one thing have to do with another? You don't help in the kitchen, one day you'll help in the kitchen too. You just may be a little bit lazy, you're tired when you come home from work. Well, what is, no, I'm not so good anyway. Not so good. Don't talk yourself into that. People talk themselves into a situation, and that really makes it worse for them. As I've explained, perhaps in another lecture, it's all in the head. And we'll talk about it more another time. People believe certain things, and therefore they conduct themselves in a certain way. That is why Ragila Leshono, being accustomed to saying the words, is very significant, especially if one understands what he's saying. When you say Modeh Ani Lefanecha, when you say Asher Yatzar et Ha'adam Lechokhmah, very powerful blessings. Hashem, I realized after coming out from the restroom that, if this wouldn't function right, if the kidneys would not be working properly, oy vavoy, things would look very, very bad. And you know what I mean. There's something called dialysis. We don't take anything for granted. He says, when you do this regularly enough, it becomes second nature. When something becomes second nature, it's helpful. Why is it helpful? Because at least it's stronger, you're more connected. It's not a guarantee that you will always stay this way. Remember, people can cool off. You need continuous recharging of those batteries. But you want it to become second nature because you want it to become easier. You want to get used to it. And in the end, the whole idea to bring it out in the open is for what purpose? So that we can observe the Torah mitzvot, and through this, לעשות נחת רוח לפניו יתברך כבנו ודוד, to bring happiness to Hashem, like a son brings happiness to his father. On this, the rabbis say, מחשבה טובה, הקדוש ברוך הוא מצרפה למעשה, a good thought. These are good thoughts. הקדוש ברוך הוא will join these thoughts to a deed, להיות גדפין לפרחה, so they should be wings to elevate the mitzvot in our Torah to the high worlds. Because in the end, our mitzvot, our learning of Torah, can go very, very high. It all depends on the Kabbalah. Did we do it out of love? Did we think about it? It can go up to Yetzirah or it can go up to Beriyah. It all depends on whether we did something with love and fear or not. They are the wings, as we've spoken about before in the previous chapter. They are the wings that elevate our mitzvot to greater heights. And it's not only about the reward. Remember what we said. When somebody does something that elevates the Torah mitzvot to greater heights, it does something to him too. He is elevated as well to greater heights. He becomes a better person, a more refined individual. As we've seen before, the love that a Jew demonstrates in the service of Hashem brings tremendous happiness to the king, to Hashem, like the happiness a king has that his son has come out of prison. Because the neshama is like in the prison when it's in the physical body. And when it is able to perform a mitzvah and do it right, it basically like frees itself from that prison. And that brings tremendous happiness to the king. Or the happiness that it gives Hashem is because he's, Baruch Hashem, able to have a dwelling place in this world, which is what he wants. That those that he created should recognize him. So even therefore, that level that we've been speaking about, to look at Hashem as the source of life, to yearn and long for his closeness, and to bring it out from concealment into a revealed state, it could happen through therefore habituating ourselves, being accustomed to it at all times, with our mouth and our heart being in sync. Our heart and our mouth. In other words, that we say it, but we also feel it. In other words, it's possible. But let's say he cannot. It's there, it's concealed, and he cannot bring it out into the revealed state. You can still, as a result of learning for the real sake, lishma, he can still bring himself to a high state, high level of love by learning lishma, learning l'shem shamayim, learning for the sake of Hashem, and imagining, having the tziyur of this ahava in his mocho, in the thoughts of his mind. And these thoughts that come about through the learning l'shem shamayim, It was doing things for their real sake. These are pure thoughts. And these pure thoughts, even though all they are thoughts in the moach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take these thoughts and join them to a maaseh. It will elevate them to a higher realm as a result of doing this properly. Even though these two aspects, these two types of love that we've been discussing now, even though we've inherited them from our forefathers, and therefore they are like teva benafshotenu, they are like instinctive. And the same thing with the yirah, with the fear, aklula bahem, the fear that we have, not loli pared, not to disconnect from Him, chas v'shalom, from the source of our life and from our Father, the true Father. It was these two types of love. They still will not be called natural instinctive love and fear, unless they are actually revealed in his heart and in the head. And then they will be able to elevate to the world of Yetzirah, and then they will be able to elevate the Torah Mitzvot as a result of what he performed with those qualities of love and fear. What did he just say? That even though they're there, they cannot be as effective and elevate the Torah Mitzvot that are learned, the Mitzvot that are performed to a high level, unless it is revealed. They need to be revealed in the lev and in the moach. Otherwise, they cannot even be called tiveim, natural love and fear. They're latent, they're potential, but to really call them, consider them as love and fear, only if they come out into the open. And then, when they do come out in the open, that is when they have that ability to elevate our prayers, for example, even though he didn't talk about prayer here, but it's the same idea. The Torah that we learn, the mitzvot that we perform, to the level of Yud Sefirot of Yetzirah. He says, but you know what? If they are revealed in the heart, in a real revelation in the heart, that's called Re'uta de Liba. That's called the desire of the heart. That's a much higher level. In other words, when you actually feel it and experience it in the heart, it's not that it's just present there. So before we said when they are in his thought, and ta'alumat libo, when they are concealed in his heart. In other words, in the hidden part of the heart. Here we talk about in a more revealed place in the heart. What's the difference? Thinking about it and somewhat feeling it is essential. But the re'uta de liba, the desire of the heart, what is the desire? That it really wants it, it really experiences it, it really longs for it. That is a much higher level. And therefore, that level, whoever displays that kind of a level, the command, the Yud Sefirot de B'riyah, it will reach the place of the 10 Sefirot of B'riyah. There it will elevate the Torah Mitzvot from where it comes. In other words, that is where that sense or feeling comes from. It's from a higher world. You know what was accomplished here? Their coming out into the open, being revealed, is through da'at, utkiyata machshava, and by immersing one's thought, by a very strong focus and concentration from the depths of the heart, yatir, betadir, be'en sof, continuously and more so, and the or en sof baruch hu. Echu, how here is our life, chayenu mamash ve'avinu metin, our real Father. Umudad zot. By the way, there's something else he says. It should be known what is written in the Tekunim. Ki ba'olam ha'briya mekanenat haman ima ila'ah. That is a Kabbalistic concept that in the higher world, the world of B'riyah, you have ima ila'ah, which is the bina of atzilut, which is a higher form of understanding. It's bina. Shehi ha'itbonenut be'or en sof, which really, as it applies to us, it involves the continuous pondering of Hashem. Chayei ha'chayim, the source of all life. Uchemamar Elyahu bina liba. Bina is the heart. Uba halev mevine. And through Binah, it is how the heart understands. In other words, this is the quality that we derive from above. That if we absorb it properly, relate it to it, reveal it to the open, has tremendous power. This is what gives man, and in this case the Jew, the ability to connect in a very powerful way to Hashem, coming through the heart, which is coming through Binah, which means a certain level of itbonenut, of awareness, of pondering Hashem. ולעוד אלא שבית בחינות האהבות אלו הנ"ל הן כלולות מבחינת אהבה רבה וגדולה ומעולה מדחילו ורחים ושכליים. It says these two loves in reality, they include a little bit of ahava rabbah and ahavat olam, and are greater in a way, they are greater from the intellectual love and fear, because we said ahava rabbah is a gift from Hashem. So in some ways this love is greater than the intellectual love and fear that one thinks about Hashem. Remember, this is a love that we inherited, that he started off saying that has a little bit of both. And in some ways, therefore, this is greater than the love and fear that are sichleim, that are intellectual, that the Jew ponders the greatness of Hashem. And as a result of pondering, he gets to that love and fear. That love that we said before is called ahavat olam. Like she'afal piken, he says, even though I just told you that this love in some ways is greater than the intellectual love, still, you need to have an intellectual love. Still, you have to use your intellect. Tzarich litroach b'sichlo. You still have to make great efforts with your sechel להשיג ולהגיע גם לבחינת אהבת עולם הנ"ל, to be able to reach through your sechel that eternal love that we've spoken about. Abba, which comes about me'atfuna v'dat b'dolat Hashem, that comes about through pondering and thinking about the greatness of Hashem. Why? Why do you need to use your intellect if we have it inherited? And all it takes is to think a little bit and reveal it out in the open. That's necessary. But why do we need to use our intellect? What's so special about this? That this particular love that will come about from the sechel will make a world of difference, much more than the other one. How? He says, you know what? Because כדי להגדיל מדורת אש אהבה ברשפי אש ושלהבת עזה ולהב העולה השמיימה עד שמיים רבים. עד שמיים רבים לא יוכלו לכבות ונרות השתגעו. You need this kind of love that is triggered or brought about through the sechel, so that you can have a blazing fire, coals burning in you, that are so strong, as I said earlier, that no waters in the world will cool you off. How did we start off? People cool off? You don't want to cool off. You need this sechel to use properly, to think about the greatness of Hashem on a regular basis, of course, so that you are able to turn on the fire in your soul, to burn so strong that no waters in the world will extinguish it. כי יש יתרון ומעלה לבחינת אהבה כרשפי אש ושלהבת עזה הבאה מתבוננות ודעת בגדולת אינסוף ברוך הוא על שתי בחינות אהבה הנ"ל. This does have, this kind of love that comes about through the intellect, does have that one advantage over the other love that we inherited, if they're not completely with the burning coals. I mean, they can also be with burning coals, they can also be very ardent, but there is one advantage still to this kind of love that has come about through meditating, through using our intellect. And that advantage, he says, is כי יתרון ומעלת הזהב על הכסף, which he explains later on like the advantage gold has over silver. It has a big advantage. As he explains later on, וגם כי זה כל האדם בתכליתו. By the way, he says, besides the burning flame that we need to have, another reason why you want to contemplate Hashem is because that is the purpose of life. One of the purposes of life is to know Him. למנדט את כבוד השם ועיקר תפארת גדולתו, to know the glory of Hashem. איש כפי שיוכל, each one according to his abilities, as it's brought down in Parshat Bo. Begin the whole idea of why Hashem gave us the intellect is that we should know Him, as it is known. In the end, he says the intellect that Hashem has given us is for the purpose, not just to be able to live our life and know how to do certain things, how to build a home, how to drive. Obviously, we need the intellect for all that. But the ultimate purpose of all is to know Him. Don't forget about Him. He's the source of life. Without Him, you can't exist. Without Him, the world cannot exist for one moment. It takes thinking. It takes awareness. It takes taking a few moments of one's day to reflect on these kind of a thought, to be able to strengthen that connection. If a Jew wants to stay connected and not chas v'shalom cool off, Hashem of course helps. He's given us that ability to feel Him, to know Him. But it has to be revealed. And the most powerful way of revealing it is itbonenut. That is really a very important key. Is thinking about it, talking about it, learning about it on a regular basis until it becomes second nature. And if it's done on a regular basis, then B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully, with the help of Hashem, it will become so strong that we will never want to part from it. We will never give it up for no money in the world. As we said in the previous chapter, it has to be that this is more meaningful to us than anything else in the world. Who thinks like that, that this is more meaningful? People think that money is the most meaningful thing. Look at the difference between the people who value money and people who value their connection to Hashem. Where does it come from? Awareness.